Hi everyone, I'm Alexandra Lopez, immigration attorney, and I want to talk about the difference between ICE detention and deportation because I've had a few consults with couples or people lately where we've had to confront them with the possibility of ICE detaining them at like a USCIS interview or just being prepared in general, right, for targeted operations in the area. And they were, of course, extremely nervous of the possibility of ICE detention. But what I realized as we were conducting these conversations was that because they thought if they were detained by ICE that they were going to be removed from the country immediately. And so I want to explain really what happens, because in the majority of the cases that is not the case. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule. Like if you're subject to expedited removal because you've been here for less than 2 years, or if you have a prior existing removal. In those cases, if you are detained, then absolutely ICE can execute that removal order and remove you absent, exigent circumstances. Also, if you're subject to expedited removal, they can put you in expedited removal proceedings and remove you without putting you in actual, what's called 240 removal proceedings, okay? But for the vast majority of people who have been here for over 2 years and who don't have a prior removal order, when ICE detains them, they are placed in removal proceedings. And for many, many people, as long as they are not in the Fifth Circuit, which is no longer granting habeas corpus petitions, we can still file habeas corpus petitions in federal court and get bond hearings. And then once they're out on bond, we can present the defense to the removal. And that can take years. In other words, think about it like a criminal case. You are accused maybe of a crime and they set a bond. You're let out on bond until the trial date, and at the end the trial date is going to determine whether or not you are guilty or not guilty, whether essentially you go to jail, right? It's kind of a similar process. The end result is either removal or not removal because you presented a defense. Now, if you don't have a strong or viable defense to removal, then it is true that a judge might be less inclined to grant you a bond and deem you a flight risk. But if you have a bona fide defense, something like 42B cancellation, which is for people who have been here for over 10 years and maybe have U.S. citizen minor children or spouse or parent, people who are who are victims of domestic violence, people who maybe have SIJS, Special Immigrant Juvenile Status, people who might have a family member that can petition or has petitioned for them, and people who have pending asylum applications also are included in that. These individuals have presented or are going to present viable, in theory, claims for relief. And so if detained, yes, they're in detention and that's uncomfortable, but in the majority of the cases, we're able to at least seek a bond, habeas corpus and then bond, then get them out. And, this process can be a very long process. It can be, there's people who've been in removal proceedings for 6 or 7 years. So it does not necessarily ICE detention does not equate to immediate removal. And especially for the people that I'm speaking with, we're talking about it in the context of pursuing some immigration benefit with USCIS. So they do have a pathway forward. Yes, detention is and should be and can be very scary, but it shouldn't be because you think you're going to be removed immediately, especially if you have an attorney who's already seeking some benefit for you with USCIS. So I wanted to kind of clarify and make that distinction. Now, everything that I'm saying is in generalities, right? And there are always exceptions to the rule, but I think it's important for people to know that there is a process to get an order of removal. And some people are also eligible for voluntary departure and can arrange for that, on their own time. So I would strongly suggest you consult with an attorney to know what your viable pathway is, your defense is in the circumstance that you are detained by ICE, and hopefully take away some of the uncertainty, because I think the hardest part is being detained and not knowing what the process is and what's going on the outside.